The school system trains people to be compliant workers. And today I'm sitting down with my ex 115 miles co-host, Hasan Khair. So if you listened to 115 miles, you'll know exactly who he is. And if you don't, then you're going to get to know him in this episode. We talk about how the introduction of AI may be flipping the script and giving power back to the individual in a system that is not designed to help you. If you've got kids, a mortgage, bills, or any kind of responsibility whatsoever, the world can feel pretty scary at the moment on top of everything else that's going on. And what Has does really, really well is help empower people to feel like they can make the changes that they may need to make in their life. Has failed his A-levels but ended up managing big global teams at big corporate companies, was made redundant and then able to rebuild to be the man that he is today. We talk about all that and how it relates to systems, how it can relate to your life, and how you can learn from the things that he's done. This is really informative. So sit back comfortably and listen to another episode of Dysfunctional. Dysfunction is everywhere. In our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution. It feels very strange to be saying it, actually, but Hassan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing well, man. It's funny, I was thinking about coming on here and I'm feeling weirdly nervous about coming on to your podcast. It's funny.
Yeah, you should be nervous as well, because obviously, since 115 miles, I have
Started to dress. You started to dress like a 12-year-old child.
I've progressed exponentially as a podcaster since 115 miles, and obviously you've stayed absolutely still. So,
did you say exponentially?
I said exponentially.
Yeah, well, right you haven't obviously evolved. You've digressed. The word is exponentially. No, that's wrong. Exponentially. God, we should quit now. We should quit now.
We're still a pair of idiots, clearly.
Yeah.
How have you been, mate? Firstly.
Yeah. Well, since we last were on a podcast together, or just in general?
I think people will want to know since we were last on the podcast together.
Yeah, good. No, good. I've been focusing very much on building out Tiller, which I spent the last year going from launching it from scratch to sort of turning it into a proper business. So that's been fun. My youngest kid started secondary school, so just a brand new phase that we've entered. That's been fun.
Just now? Is that in
today?
September,
this morning? Yeah, this morning.
Oh.
Yeah, she joined secondary school. So yeah, that's feels weird to not have any kids in primary school. And I've been talking with you about something that's been really passionate topic for me that we're going to get into today, which is just recognizing that we're in a real major sort of period of change as it relates to the world of work. And we're obviously deeply in the world of work, either through the consultancy where we do leadership work, or like with Tiller, with managers. And I see a lot of change coming, and I want to try and get into helping people around that change. So I've been spending a lot of time on that.
Specifically young people, you want to help with that? What, I don't know what young people means.
Yeah. Well, not me. Is young. No, actually, it's probably more around people who are a bit older. Sort of in middle life. So this is something that's been sort of coming up for me in the last sort of 6-7 months. I think through the spectrum of our work, we cover various sort of generations. So if I think about the work that we do on the consultancy side, that's probably more sort of people who are a bit more established in their career and a bit more seasoned. With Tiller, it's probably people that are earlier on in their management careers. But this particular area that I've been interested in is around people who have had a career that are starting to find that they are facing uncertainty, right? And not sure what to do. So I don't want to give too much away because we'll get into it in the conversation. But yeah, it's probably more people around sort of mid-40s onwards.
And but let's get straight into it.
Okay.
I mean, when you say they're facing uncertainty, what do you mean by that?
So I've been doing a lot of work, for those like of your listeners that don't know me, I've been around the world of leadership development, HR, management development for, I mean, you can tell by the thinness of my hair, but a quarter of a century, 25 years I've been in this space. And I've
Wow,
played like,
you're fucking
oh,
old, man.
um, and like obviously I started when I was 10. So, but the point is, I've seen sort of every element of this, and what's been um, what's been really constant is that the world of work has changed significantly as each of those 25 years pass. But what we're facing now is an incredibly significant change that I think some people are aware of, but a lot of people aren't aware of. Now, you see the headlines, AI is coming, it's going to take your jobs. I don't think it's just about that. I think industries that have been fairly established for years, in the last couple of years, they've been making massive changes. Either they've been impacted by the economy or they've been impacted by this technological advancement. But those two sort of perfect storms are about to happen together, where you see AI and automation coming in at a really incredible sort of pace. Almost it will feel like a tsunami. And so what I've been seeing through my sort of work as a coach and working with people live is people that have built careers over a couple of decades or a number of years, thinking that they're really secure and safe and they've worked really hard. They find themselves out of work, and the industry that they've invested in and spent a lot of time in doesn't want them anymore. And so they've got a set of skills that aren't really valuable in the world that they're about to head into. And that's kind of the space that I think is really scary for a lot of people, because they're just at the point when they probably need to be settled. They're really, they have a rug pull and they don't know what to do.
It is literally for people that are listening that may not really understand exactly what you're talking about in terms of like the change for AI. It's a bit like all of a sudden us not needing electricity anymore, and you're an electrician, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's just like everything you've ever trained for's gone. Your job just doesn't exist,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's what AI is doing, I think. I don't because I think that look, I think that there's a lot of people using Chat GPT and stuff now, but I don't think people actually realize the um, extent to which it is removing jobs that people felt completely secure in, you know, before AI
yeah.
come in the form that it's in now, you know?
Yeah, like I think I don't want to jargon up this conversation. So, the thing about AI is, I think a lot of businesses in particular, the ones that are trying to make massive profits, they're looking at how they can streamline their workforces so that they can bring this technology in and have basically um, robots doing what humans are doing, because you can just produce much more. So a lot of the jobs that are going to be impacted are probably the junior jobs. That's not really the area that I'm sort of been spending a lot of time on. But at the same time, these businesses are struggling with like keeping up with the economy impacting them. So actually, what they're doing is they're taking out the more expensive people, which is the people that are more senior, and it's those people that I'm really interested in supporting, because they are leaving. They've probably got dependents. They've got mortgages. They've got rent. They've got significant outgoings, but they don't necessarily have a job that they can walk into. So the advertising industry is where, as you know, where I spent the majority of my corporate career. I've seen it a lot there, where people are being kind of discarded and not and don't really care about what happens to them in the industry, and so they are finding it very difficult to find jobs. And the fact is, there are too few jobs for the amount of people that are kind of entering the market. And I can talk about advertising, and some people will say, well, it's advertising, they do the devil's work, so that's all right, it suits them. But actually, this is just indicative of what else is, it's happening in manufacturing, it's happening in retail, it's happening all over the place. So my mission is really to try and help people figure out what to do next. And we've been doing some of that, stuff for years, but we do it almost, as a side thing to the main thing. But I think this is going to be really needed in the next few years.
So what is the fix like if we start to think about the fix, I guess in order to think about the fix, we need to think about where the problem starts, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
So where do you feel like the problem starts with this?
You know, you and I on our podcasts over the years, we talked a lot about broken systems, which is why I loved the idea of what you're doing here on the podcast.
Just quickly to interject you, by the way, in case people don't know, we used to have a podcast called 115 Miles, and it ran for 4 years,
Yeah, over 100
and it was
episodes.
a topical debate podcast that we released every other week. We had little breaks here and there, but yeah, it ran for 4 years. Just because there might be people that don't
Yeah,
know about
and
the
it, and it,
podcast
and
show.
it's still up for people that want to have a listen to it. And yeah, we're just on
Not
it.
not not above this. Don't leave this to go and listen to it. It's not as good as
What
this.
it is, it's better. Yeah, because I was obviously the main anchor host, and you were the sidekick host. But yeah, we talked a lot about dysfunctional systems within that topical show, but often we would talk about schooling being a dysfunctional system. And where I think this comes from, and you and I have talked about this as mates, is uh, yeah, at a personal level, I didn't feel that school served me well. But actually, if we think about school, it's about quotas, it's about hitting targets, it's about compliance and memorization, and that's just to kind of create some sort of a filtering system. But what it doesn't do is encourage kids to have creativity, to have autonomous thinking, to have agency. So basically, all we're doing from nursery onwards is conditioning people to just behave in a certain way and follow a path that isn't really that they don't have a choice in. And actually, that just feeds itself into the world of work. And so you know we're conditioned to think if you go to school, if you get to secondary school, do your GCSEs, do your A levels, or whatever the equivalents are, get yourself into a career, get your head down, work hard, you'll be fine. And that used to be kind of true, but it isn't anymore. And so when people are, yeah, sorry, I'll pause there.
No, yeah, I was just going to interject and say, when you say it used to be true, up until what point are you saying that it stopped being true?
What I mean is, is the lie used to be kind of true, right? In that you could enter a career quite early, and then you could work your way through that and collect a pension and retire. Right? You still don't have the agency, you still don't have the creativity. What you believe is, not that you have choices, but actually, if you follow this, you'll be fine, and you'll get to retirement, and you'll pay off your mortgage hopefully one day, and you can retire.
Can I just give people that are listening just a couple of, because I've got a couple of things just to say here that I think shape what you've just said. The birth of the modern schooling system comes from the factory models back in the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution, where schools were designed to mirror factories, bells, rows, schedules, uniformity, and all to create compliant workers who would follow their orders, right? And it actually, there was something else that I found that like really highlights the influence of it. Wherever I got it. The 20th century shift towards grading systems and standardized testing meant that children were judged by how well they fit into narrow categories: maths, reading, and writing. Anything outside those measures was ignored or labeled as a weakness. The system rewarded being average at everything instead of excelling at something unique. And the last bit I wanted to just read is that the Rockefeller influence was in the US. Powerful industries bankrolled mass schooling in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, not to empower kids, but to ensure a disciplined, predictable workforce. Rockefeller even said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers."
Yeah, that's it.
So they were literally like that by design, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that uh, that design in many ways was kind of all right. It kind of worked, right? For up until a point. But perhaps would you, and I'm asking you this, would you say maybe in the 90s, or was it when the internet really got introduced where that kind of system started to really change?
I mean, look, I think it worked because people didn't have a significant macro need to question it, right? Because there were always haves and have-nots in the system. That's the way the system is designed, right? So not everyone was thriving and flourishing. Far from it. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's probably, I think the 90s was kind of okay. It's probably in the last sort of decade um, where there have been major sort of forces around the economy, like recessions or COVID, or where suddenly you had this kind of certain sort of consistency in the world order got massively disrupted, and so like it became quite normal to do restructure after restructure after restructure, and it just became less and less like there was less moral compass around, oh, we're going to be, what's going to do to our workforce. It's just now a part of business. You go, oh, numbers are down this quarter, let's just cut some people out. Numbers are down again next quarter, let's cut some people out. So it's just become pervasive in the workforce. Definitely since 2008, when you had the global banking crisis, I think that's when it really started to shift.
Yeah, maybe like in many ways, like the global banking crisis changed the consensus of the way that people viewed capitalism. Maybe that's when hypercapitalism then ramped up, because after the banking crisis, it created so much fear of that happening again that you were able to say to people, all that matters is that you as an individual makes as much money as you possibly
Yeah,
can, right? Because
yeah,
I don't know if we ever talked about it on 115 miles, but like the difference between what I would call hypercapitalism, some people call it late stage capitalism, right? And capitalism. Capitalism is people do well for doing things that further advance the community in which they live in, or society in general, right? And so a hierarchy forms because if you work hard and you've got certain talents, you can do well if you're supporting the forwarding of society. Hypercapitalism says it doesn't matter whether it forwards society or not. In fact, it doesn't matter if it harms society. If you're making loads more money from it, then it's okay. So them like scores of restructuring that you're talking about, ethically today, are morally more okay because it's every man for himself, and as
yeah,
long as you're doing all right, then if the other people just worked as hard and watched a Simon Squibb video, they could be an entrepreneur
yeah,
and do the same thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like when you were talking about capitalism, hypercapitalism, the weird thought that popped into my head as an analogy was processed foods and ultra processed foods. So you got natural
Yeah.
foods, right? And then you needed a certain level of processing sometimes to have foods. That's kind of what we ate a lot of probably in the 70s and 80s. Now, ultra processed foods, it's nothing to do with food. It's entirely about capitalism, right? Like they're not food companies. They are like commercial businesses. And so, any of your listeners, I encourage them, because I did this experiment after I heard someone talk, like a doctor talk about ultra processed foods. Next time you go into the supermarket, like you'll really notice that they're all complicit. The supermarkets with those ultra processed food companies, everywhere where your eye looks is the stuff they don't want to sell you, and the stuff that's kind of good for you is much harder to find, right? And it's more expensive, and so they price it cheap to hit volume, and they put it in your line of sight. That's basically what hyper capitalism is, and they don't really care about the impact. They don't care about nutritional value. They just care about profit, and I think that has really accelerated since 2008. And the other thing that happened around that period was when the big tech companies started to really have their network effects. So Facebook was sort of around 2007, where it had to it grew, Twitter, all those things. So I can't, I believe that there's a correlation between those things where these behemoth companies started to kind of influence our society as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that like because I talk about like capitalism getting its greedy little mitts on things, right? And actually anything good is at risk of hypercapitalism getting hold of it and completely destroying it, right?
Yeah.
I even look at, I don't know if you saw the feminist debate on about feminism on Stephen Bartlett. Have you seen that, where three women have debated that.
No.
But you even look at something like empowering women to be able to go to work, right? And then so that you don't have this kind of uh, old idea that the woman stays at home and looks after the children and cleans the kitchen, right?
Mm.
It's fantastic. It's great. It's amazing that we push to change the idea of that. But hypercapitalism gets its hands on it and just goes, well, now we can make sure that the only way to ever possibly be able to get any kind of mortgage is if there's two working people in the house, right?
Right.
And now all of a sudden we are bound by house pricing, which is made around two people getting a mortgage, because well, now both of you can go back to work straight away, right? And
Mm.
then it becomes actually problematic, because in an ideal world you'd always have one person at home looking after the children, so that you've got that strong family unit. And that's not me saying to people, if you're both at work you're being horrible to your kids. I'm saying the system slowly
Yeah.
uses positive things to then erode into taking things away from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how abuse happens,
Yeah.
right? And that's how abusive systems, structures, and relationships happen.
Yeah.
They start off by something amazing, love bombing you.
Yeah.
We're going to help you all get back to work, yeah? And then slowly, before you know it, you're like, I never thought I could get myself in this situation, but here I am, because slowly they've taken it away. And that's what happens with systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it gets to a point where you stop questioning like the normality of what should be, and you accept what is, and so and
Yeah.
that's it. And then you just go, well, yeah, we all have to work all the hours just to survive, and that's the system. That's the system that's broken. And so these people that get caught up in it, whether it's just to survive and just pay the bills and just keep afloat, or some people who have kind of pushed for more material stuff, right? And they get used to that, and then it's just you get stuck, right? Because you have a bigger mortgage, or you have a bigger, like you're renting something bigger, or you have your car payments or whatever, right? And then suddenly that thing gets taken away, and your whole identity gets removed from you, and you don't know what to do with it. And I think with just, I don't want to be the doomsayer here, but it's real. Like, it's definitely happening. I'm seeing it with my real eyes. I'm talking to real people who are going through it. I'm helping them with it. And that's why I really genuinely feel like something needs to be done, because the world not only is changing fast in terms of the hypercapitalization, the technology is happening at the same time as well.
Yeah, and that's like, again, it like at the moment it's all in our hands and it's all exciting, right? But eventually, like with all of the other things that we've talked about, you worry that the people in power are going to use it to transfer more power. So let's come back, if we can, a little bit to where do you see the solutions here?
Well, there's a sort of a short-term and a long-term answer, and a long-term utopian answer. The long-term utopian answer goes back to, but where you said, like, where does it start? Like, if we can teach creativity, agency, how to kind of autonomy, how to come up with great ideas and lean into your strengths. If we could teach that earlier on, rather than the system that's that we see happen from like the Industrial Revolution, that would be amazing. That's long term, but probably there's going to be a lot of obstacles in your way. The short term, and this is something that I'm trying to sort of get some action around, is actually, even if you find yourself in a place of being lost and you don't and you've had the rug pull, rather than just going straight into like panic mode, taking a little moment to sort of discover yourself a bit. There's some work you can do. I've talked about, on our previous podcast, and I talk about it, publicly as well on kind of my social media. If you look for your purpose, and if you can like spend a bit of time understanding what's really important to you and your identity, what your values are, and then start to kind of build out a plan from that. Start to believe in the possibilities beyond what you've just only ever done. that doesn't exist, but actually what's the possibility of what's in the future. You may not even know how to do it yet, but if we can then start to help you get a bit of a plan around it, if we then put some community around you of other people that are going through it with some experts who know what they're doing, who've been through a process like this before, like community multiplies, right? And the community looks after each other. Like if we just look at your communities that you create, there's a power in feeling like you're in this together. So if we can do something like that, I think we can start to make change. And this isn't about gatekeeping. This isn't about creating really expensive, walls behind and selling products. It's not about that. It's about just giving people like the understanding to like know how to get unstuck if you're feeling stuck. And so there are processes that that you can go through that help you discover that, and then there are processes that can help you take ideas and turn them into action. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They do some thinking, but they don't know how to turn it into action. I think both of those are equally important. You don't want to just get straight into action because you might be focusing on the wrong things, but you don't just want to sit around and just do some creative sketching. Those two things have to go together.
You wonder why, when you're talking like that, you wonder why it's not taught in schools like that, right?
Well, you just told us why, because we're designed for obedience.
And do you think they still purposely do that?
I just don't think they question it anymore. It would cost too much. It would take a lot of courage to rip up the rule book and say this doesn't work. Let's create something new. And I think the way that they have tried to do that is to give alternative routes outside of school now, apprenticeships and training schemes and stuff like that. So I'm not saying it's all like doom and gloom and no one's trying to kind of fix things. And I think there are fewer barriers to entry than there were in the past. So, you can now take an idea and run with it in a way that you weren't able to do before, because you needed to have investment and backing. You and I have spent quite a bit of time like digging into AI. You know that you can take an idea and sort of turn that into something, but most people don't really know how to do it. So if there is a way to educate people around the benefits of using the technology, fully understanding that this is a nuanced conversation and there's always a negative to a positive. So there's an impact on the culture, on the climate and stuff like that around AI. But it's here. This AI wave is coming, and I don't think you can deny it's coming. So just lean into understanding it better. If we can educate people around that, I think that's a really important thing.
Have you seen that they've got to start like building the AI, what do they like, hubs or whatever they
Yeah,
call them?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just where,
They're crazy.
and they're going to be like these massive. I don't know I forget the name of the guy who is the CEO of AI. What's it called? The Chat GPT, basically.
Oh, Sam Altman.
Yeah, I seen him on Theo Von's podcast.
Okay, yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, they're going to be massive. But you know what? Maybe one day we'll just put them on the moon or something like that. It's like or they'll be on a different planet. Yeah, but you shake your head like that, right? But 15 years ago, if I had told you about all the stuff that's going to happen with AI, you'd have pulled the same face.
True. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's just like,
well,
it's not
the reason I sort of shake my head is that just a way to deflect the conversation away from like the impact on the climate now, or are they actually having conversations about putting them on different planets? Did you just a side note, little tangent? There was a hot mic moment between Vladimir Putin and the president of China, and they were talking about basically eternal life, and like they just got caught basically talking about, yeah, well, if you keep changing out your organs, you can basically keep going, and like they're talking about basically being immortal, and it was like a very serious conversation. So it just made me think. These are the two guys that are probably investing quite a lot. And if you look at...
What, is that real? Are you sure that's real?
Yeah, it was in the news. I was in the news. Like there was a hot mic moment and they were talking about, like the advancements in immortality that they're trying to kind of push for. And then they're spending a lot of money on like genetic, like AI stuff as well. It's funny.
Now you might have a few more years left in you.
Oh yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, maybe I can reverse my aging.
What do you remember? What school was like for you?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I went to a normal primary school, state primary school, and then I grew up in North London, Tottenham, pretty low income area. I grew up in a single parent family. Dad passed away when I was 10 months old. It was just me, my mum, and my sister. My sister was 6 years older than me, and so those early years were fun. There was no pressure, but then my mum sort of recognised that the schools around me at that time, they're a bit better now, but the secondary schools around me were pretty bad, pretty rough, and she just decided that she wanted something different for me. So she got me a tutor. We didn't have a lot of money, but I had a weekly tutor, and I won a scholarship. It's called an assisted place scholarship, which was a bursary for low income families to a very good private school in London. And
So what you got? You got a grant. So the government gave your mum money to send you there,
pretty much,
paid for you to
yeah.
go
I mean,
there.
it was a very highly sought after. It's like a scholarship, basically. So yeah, you get your fees fully paid for. You get some subsidies towards like uniform and stuff like that. And this will just set the tone. Where we used to have to get our school uniform from was Harrods. That's where we had to
Fucking
buy
hell.
our school uniform. So can you imagine the difference between Tottenham, right, where I would wake up every morning and then going into that environment where everyone had money and there was probably about 5 or 6 of us that had this thing in that school, and the rest were all like fee paying, and it's one of the most expensive schools now, like in London.
Did you know that when you was a kid?
Did I know what?
Did you know that you were like, I don't know, one of 5 kids that were in there on a?
I see. I focused more on being the assisted place kid. So you almost felt like you were the kid on. I know it sounds ironic because it was a posh school, but I felt like almost like I was the kid on free school meals in that environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean. Yeah, so you did have a sense that you were the subsidized kid.
yeah. Because like my friends who I adored, like, but I'd go to their house in Fulham or Putney, and they're these massive
What, like
houses.
you'd go to Tarquin's house
Tarquin's
and
house,
fucking.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny, whenever we think of a posh boy, we always go with Tarquin as a name. But yeah, no offense to any Tarquins out there listening. Do you reckon you
I
have many
don't.
Tarquins?
I don't think there'd be many. No, no.
But yeah, like, so you were very aware of like, very, very aware of my house that was kind of crumbling, and going into their, super lovely
Were you
houses.
embarrassed by your house? Do you
Sometimes,
remember like being
yeah,
embarrassed
yeah,
about
yeah,
having mates
yeah,
over?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes, but
So you were aware of it, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And we didn't have a lot of money, right? So like, the house needed repair. It got repaired eventually, down the line. But yeah, there was definitely moments where I was very aware of the gap between what we had and where we would go. But to credit my friends, they never made a no. They never said anything. They used to come and stay at my house. We were mates. Like it never came up. But I was aware of it for sure.
You were aware of it, yeah, but nobody ever said like nobody was ever like, oh, they didn't start calling you Bursary as a nickname or
Well,
something
maybe
like
they did
that.
behind my back. I don't know. It'd be kind of unadventurous to call me bursary, but yeah, maybe they did. But that might be a surprise to them if any of them sort of come across this podcast that that I would have been thinking about. But yeah, you do. You're very aware of your social class when you're in an environment like that.
What benefits do you think you got from going to that school
Um,
that people that didn't go to private school got?
Confidence and the ability to network. Like I don't I don't know if I would have gone and become the chief talent officer of Middle East and Africa of an advertising network if I hadn't have gone to that school and I didn't know.
Why? Why did it give you confidence?
You just you are the you become the product of the people that you're surrounded by, right? So if you're at school with politicians' sons and actors' sons and you know playwrights' sons and all that sort of stuff, then you just pick up some of that energy. And I think I was always pretty good with people, so it just allowed me to like lean into that a bit more. Um, and and the reason
I want to stick there. I can't walk. I can't just brush past that.
well, let me just explain. why I've sort of further validated that, because I think me and my sister, we sort of were raised, raised by the same parent in the same household, but we have different experiences of life, and a lot of that will be down to gender as well, for sure. But also just like my level of confidence, I think just came from just being in that space, and
So she never went to that
she
school,
didn't
is
go.
that what
No,
you're saying?
she didn't. No, no.
And she was less confident.
I don't want to say that about my sister, but what I'll say is I think I definitely exude a level of confidence that that is different to my sisters.
And you credit that to being around politicians, kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, just like privilege and confidence. So they all knew that they'd be all right. They never have to worry for food or bills being paid, or whether they're not going to go on holiday or not. They don't.
Did you though? Did you have to worry about those things?
Um, n- n- well, we didn't really go on holiday. Like we went back home to where my mum's from every few years, like because that's what you did. But we didn't go on like annual holidays and stuff like that. We didn't really go out lots and spend lots of money. We didn't have lots of money, so I was aware of the wealth gap, but did I never grew up wanting, like, because my mum, always made sure we always had food, always had clothes, so I never lived in poverty. I don't want to like misrepresent how I grew up. I never lived in poverty, but we just didn't have money, and things were tight. For many of my early years, my mum, she used to basically, like when my dad died, basically she was 27. My dad was 37, and she came from Bangladesh to be a housewife, and she couldn't speak the language, um, and my dad passing was very sudden and unexpected. So in the beginning, she had to just sew. She used to have a sewing machine in the house, and she used to sew dresses for 2p a dress. I think it was 1p a dress in the beginning, and they would just have these massive bags of material that would come, and then she would sew the dresses, and they would take them away, and that's what kept us going. And then as we got a bit older, and she grew a bit more confidence herself, she then went to like night school, and she learned. She sort of qualified as a childminder, did that for a bit, then moved it. Then she, because she could always speak 5 Asian subcontinent languages, just because like around the region, she was able to converse in different languages. So then she found a way into the NHS as an interpreter, and so she did that right the way through to when she retired from the NHS. She was it's called a health advocate, but basically she used to be in the room explaining to patients who couldn't speak English what the doctors and medical professions were saying. So, yeah, I mean, amazing woman, my mum.
It sounds it, yeah. And like it's incredible that she did, all of those things in order for you to not live in relative poverty.
Yeah,
But I still could. So if you'd have gone to state school,
yeah,
you'd have been less confident, you believe?
yeah. I think so. I think so. Because
Anything else?
the reason I say that is because I don't. So for all the amazing things that I just talked about, in our house, it wasn't an environment that was always full of like confidence. You can do this. You can be the best you can be, because like there was no time. She was just trying to survive, right? So we didn't have a lot of that growing up, and so I think it just wouldn't have pervaded into my being. Like it just I would have just and also the system doesn't really tell you can be anything. When you grow up in an area like that, they don't tell you you can be anything you want to be. They sort of almost condition you to believe don't stretch yourself too far. You're not going to be able to be that big. So you sort of live small. So I think that's what I probably took from it.
Right.
Yeah,
So at seniors, like state school, they just tell you to, like, I was always told, get a trade, basically.
yeah,
Apart from my drama teacher who said, you could be anything you want to be in drama. Everybody else said, probably get a trade, mate.
yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And so, but when you went to that other school, simply because there was a notion that you had more money, more wealth, right? Just because you were in that group of people, you were made to believe that you could be something more.
That, and the environment is like from day one. It's like the end of this journey, you're heading to university. Like there's no um, detour on that, right? And not only are you going to uni, you're going to one of the good ones, right? So
Did you go to uni?
no, I didn't, because I failed my A levels.
You failed your A levels.
Massively fucked them up. Yeah, massively. So basically, this is why this is my whole belief around the system, because um, I know, if I knew then what I know now, like I'm not wired for that. I'm not wired to be told what to do, which is why I went and started my own business. But secondly, I learn in different ways. We all learn in different ways, but we're only ever told that we can learn in one way, which is the way that they tell you. And I just found that massively difficult. But the thing about that is, my mum thought that she did the hard work in all the investment in a tutor for me, getting in, like I took entrance exams to a few different schools, got one of the places, picked this one. She thought, right, that's been hard, but I'm handing my son over to you now. Can you make him a doctor at the end of this process, please? But it doesn't work like that, because you need the environment around you at home. And so I sort of managed to work out that I could get away with not working if I just kept the two separate. And I don't think the school in those days, they just sort of talk about behavior problems. They don't go, oh, this guy's actually, he's got something about him. Let's like figure out what's going wrong here and try and help. It's just like, oh, he's disrupting. He's a bit of a joker in the pack. And that's what I did. I found you always talk about like being the joker, and that's the way you fit in. That's how I fit in school, because I was overweight. I wasn't very good at sport, so I wasn't like in the sports track. I wasn't in the academic track, but we were always good at like taking the piss out of people. And that's basically it. I became the joker, and I just kept doing that. I somehow scraped through GCSEs, and then I hit A levels, and that was when I started to go out and start partying, and just that was kind of where it just started to really unravel. And at some point, most people will go, okay, I'm about to do my exams. 6 months before that happens, you go, okay, let me put my head down. I just didn't. I thought I'd just wing it. And and it just, I got to the end of that. I got my results, and I didn't wing it. And so I spent the next few years feeling like an absolute failure, absolute shame of how I let my mum down, let our family name down, because there's just, there's a lot of cultural impact of like, going to school like that. There was a lot of jealousy as well, and envy, right? Because, you're like, oh, look at her sending her son to a private school. And so there was a lot of shame that I carried for a long time, a lot of imposter syndrome. And just for, I'd say almost a decade, even when I was like rising up the career ladder and being in executive positions, I really struggled with what a failure I was. And at this point, I was probably, what was I say? I was responsible for 24 different countries, 1,500 employees. I was one of 4 members of an executive leadership team, but still I'm like, oh, you're the failure. You screwed up, And a lot of that, I think, came from nobody sort of putting their arm around me and going, oh, you'll be all right. You just need to approach it this way, so that's why I just feel like the system is broken, and I know I'm not the only one that will be struggling in school, but leaving thinking that you're dumb and you're worthless and you're never going to amount to anything. And it took a lot of hard work and a few kind of lucky breaks for me to kind of then find my path, but it was hard. I spent a long time just feeling like I didn't belong.
That completely doesn't match up to the first thing you said about the school, that it gave you the confidence to go on and believe that you could do anything.
I look at that now, and that's what I've taken from it. But at the time when I left, I was 18. I didn't know that I didn't walk going, oh, at least I got confidence. It's only retrospectively I've been able to look back and go, well, what did I take from that? It was the confidence. So that's what I took from it. And everything up until that point wasn't a failure moment. Like I wasn't like going, oh, I'm a failure. It's only when you leave that environment and you're cast into the world and you have to be an adult, and you don't have anything and no fruits to show for like your time there, that's when you start feeling like a failure. So that's how it started. It's not how it's ended, but that's how it started for sure.
Yeah. So then what happened? Like, you got you failed your A levels, and then what? You got a job in.
So like, failed my A levels. I was signing on, and you got to remember, like I'd also become a bit of,
Sorry, you were signing on the
yeah. I
dole.
was
You're
signing.
going on the.
I was on the dole, yeah. So I left school,
Wow.
and I needed a bit of money, um, and um, and I sort of, even though I've just kind of told you about how un you know how sort of we came from a low income family. I still, having 7 years been in a private school, I had a bit of entitlement and privilege in my character by that point, right? Because you can't not, right? And so I really hated signing on, not just because I just felt like that it just reinforced what a fuck up I was and how much I was failing. And so, what I was trying to do at that point was resit my exams and try and get myself into university. Um, and but I was failing at that as well. So then I got a job at Blockbuster Video in Tottenham Hale, and I was getting paid £3 an hour. And 7 videos a week. And I love film, so I was like, "This is cool, man." And that was where it.
7
Yeah,
videos
seven
a
videos a week,
week.
man. VHS tapes. And that was the start of it. And what shifted was it went from being like, oh, I'll do a couple of shifts a week to I started to do a few more. But I realized I was really good with customers. I love film. I was able to like build rapport, had really good teammates and good rapport there. And I started to just come alive a little bit. I stopped feeling like a failure for a minute. Not like at a macro level. I still felt like, oh, I've got to get on my A levels, get to university, all that sort of stuff. Um, uh, just I need to get on with stuff. But then I stopped thinking about that as much. And then the big shift came when I left Blockbuster and went to work for Virgin Megastores in Oxford Street. And then I just got fast tracked and I became a supervisor within 6 months. And I was running a massive department, the video department, which was 13 million turnover. I had a team of about 45 I was sort of responsible for. And that was
At
it.
what age is this? What age is this?
This is about 19.
You're 19 and you're in charge of that many people.
Yeah,
And yet you'd been part of a system that made you feel like the only way you're going to be able to succeed is if you go back, resit your A levels and get yourself into university.
correct.
That's the problem,
Yeah,
right?
it's correct.
That's the problem, is that the system couldn't help you
Yeah.
recognize all of the skill set that you had.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was only when you started to like really enjoy, like your strengths started to come out, your superpowers started to come out. You could see the impact you were having on other people. Like when I used to be a boss, I think one of the things is I always felt like I need to lead from the front. So if we had to do like an overnight kind of stock turnover where you would basically do a day shift and then do overnight and then, make sure everything was right for the next morning, I'd be, putting the stock out, leading, driving people. And so like, I realized I had a skill for motivating people. And so you start to think, okay, I can do like this. And I'm a lot younger than a lot of the people here, but there's something about me. And you stop like thinking about your failures. But here's a really important point. Because of where we were, which is at the end of Oxford Street, I often used to have mates that I went to school with like pop in, and immediately my trauma and my sort of lived experience and shame would get triggered straight away. So I could have been bouncing around having a laugh with customers, with my mates, and the minute I saw somebody from like my past, that sort of shame would just creep in. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll probably go to uni, like yeah, just like next year. You sort of get back into that narrative of oh, I'm feeling shame. And so you kind of get that in and out of the system until I then started to question the rationality of what I was telling myself, because it was just this. It's like a broken record that you just keep letting play over and over again. Unless you start to do something about it, unless you challenge it, it's just going to keep happening and happening and happening. I think I just remember a moment where I just went, "Nah, fuck it. Like, what am I doing? I'm all right. I've got these strengths, and right now, I'm probably the best person in the world to be doing this job for a number of reasons." And that was the moment that I started to think differently about myself.
Mm. So when did you end up leaving the corporate world?
Um, what again, another reason I'm so passionate about this is I was made redundant over a decade ago, and I was headhunted from one role into another one, and then 3 months into being headhunted, but my kids were super young. But I was in the system, like I was an executive. I had a certain amount of outgoings. I was living a certain lifestyle, and I had responsibilities. And I was told that my position was being made redundant, not just me, but just basically all of that executive team. And it just was hard on me that I was just the most recent, and I was pulled out of a very stable and secure job. But luckily for me, I got notified. Most people don't get this luxury, but I was notified at the end of March that this was going to happen, but that it wasn't going to happen until the end of November. So I had a really long runway to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And because I'd kind of been really good at networking, and that was one of my strengths, I was able to start talking to a few people, and they said, oh, well, look, I can't afford to bring you on full time, but I could probably do like half a day or a day. And that was the start of the consultancy. So I left on the Friday and I had 2 founding clients on the Monday, and haven't really looked back since, but that was it. And I realized how fortunate I was in having that runway. But what I also did was I diversified my skills quite early on in that journey. And so that's when I trained to be a coach. And then I sort of built up the coaching practice as well. And I think I had enough experience to be able to turn my hand to consulting, but not everyone does. And so I've spent a sort of, a decade trying to figure out how to help people who are in transitional moments transition out, and find a new pathway.
And that's what it's sort of full circle of everything that we're talking about, right? It's sort of helping people to discover agency, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Like self-authorship, is that a term that you've used? To look at that.
Yeah. Like I think it's defining your pathway. And I'm not for a minute promising there's any certainty to the outcomes or that it's going to be easy. But what it does is, I've seen it because I've spent a lot of time with people on it, is where people start to feel really jaded at, so let's say they get made redundant, and so the first thing they'll do is they'll dust off their CV, update it, and then they'll start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to sit at LinkedIn, I'm just going to start applying for jobs. Surely one of these jobs, look at my experience, I'm a dead cert for that. And what is so dehumanizing is that on paper you meet that job description, but you don't even get a callback, you don't even get an acknowledgement. And now you've got AI that's kind of influencing how people are being selected, but also just generating CVs and applications and stuff like that. So you're fighting basically with one arm tied behind your back. And so it becomes really debilitating to just keep doing it and not get any traction. And so when I meet some people, sometimes you can see it in their body language, you can see it in their face, their eyes are sort of like there's the light's gone. And then when you just start to talk to them about well, what is it you love? What is it that you're good at? No, and really dig into that. And then you think, well, what does the world need? I'm giving you kind of ikigai here. And what are some of the things that you can try that you haven't? Like, just really stretch the possibilities, even if it feels really crazy right now. Like, what do you think might be possible? What did you want to do as a kid that you sort of stopped thinking about because you took this job when you were 16? Oh, I really wanted to have a cafe one day. Okay, well, what's that look like? And so you start to create possibility. And then from there, you then start to try and turn that into something that might be a bit more realistic, of well, if I did that for the next 5 years, what are the things I'd have to consider? I'd have to go and study on this and this and this. Okay, well, what would be the impact if I had to study? I might have to take a part-time job, but it would be worth it to do this or whatever. And then you get into this phase after that of okay, well, what are the 3 things? If I focused on those 3 things and nothing else, and I just put my mind to that, how far could I get? And what are the steps I'd need to take on those 3 goals? And that's basic. I've just basically, got a very sophisticated process and tried to boil it down. But that's it. It's figure out what's really important to you, what you think you can give back to the world, and where you think you can kind of apply your skills, even if it's not what you've done before. Figure out what that life could look like, and it should feel really exciting for you. And then you start to figure out, well, how am I going to get this done? And there's loads of tools and techniques. You know, and in your show notes we can, you know, share a few links or something like that people can like look at if they're finding themselves in a situation like this. But yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about, and like helping people just to figure it out. And the more people that know this stuff, the more they'll be able to help in their circles.
It is that, it's that, like, it's the passion really for empowering people in line with what happened to you, right? When you were at your A levels at that point, and you're like, oh, I just need to go back and do my A levels, right? That's the only like, you couldn't see another way. And then all of a sudden you have a realization, actually, there's another way. And then when you had that runway, when you got made redundant from your job, it then gives you like the opportunity to believe that something else is possible. Because I think that's, we get conditioned by the systems that we pull ourselves into, to the belief that there is no other way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think about the way that you helped me 8 years ago. Fucking mental,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Wow.
And when I came to see you, I was like, you know, I'm stuck in a job, I work in a factory, and there's no way out for me. And like, through a bit of a conversation, you opened up the idea that there's a possibility that there could be another way out. And I was the typical, I had just had my 6th child. I had a mortgage and outgoings based on a salary I didn't believe was matchable on my qualifications in any other way. Do you know what I mean? So there I was a bit of a, like, at the time, I really felt like I was a no-hoper. I could not see another way out. But actually, even if I zoom out a little bit, before I met you, I realized what's missing from my life is purpose. So I was like, let me volunteer first. I did a lot of volunteering.
Yeah.
And even that started to open my eyes and go, okay, there is possibilities of different, you know, a different way of living, but it's just opening your eyes, isn't it? Away from the system that traps you in. Because the way that you get trapped in the system that I've heard you talk about in this podcast is you get paid X amount of £1,000 a year. And on that X amount of £1,000 a year, you set your outgoings. So you rent or buy somewhere based on that. Your fuel, the car you drive, the clubs that your kids go to if you've got a family, all of that shit is all based on X amount that you earn a year.
Yeah.
And so when that feels like it's gone, you're trapped. It's like, I need to just go straight. I need to go sideways and make sure that I get exactly the same job on exactly the same salary, so that I can stay in the system that I've been conditioned into getting into. And I guess what you're saying is that we need to empower people to have the kind of agency to feel like they can break free from that system.
And the key thing to that is opening, like helping people to open, like agency comes after belief or the beginnings of belief, right? And that's what gets knocked out of us. And so, and there are different stages of that, of those needs, right? So for some people, it's like you get to a certain level and you want to maintain it, or you're worried about like what happens if you can't maintain it, right? Because it has a major impact on your life. For other people, it's like, I need this job just to survive, just to stay afloat, just to keep my head above water. And it's all relative to those people. So like you go, well, I have to get another job that has to, like, I can't even think about anything else. I just need to make sure that you know, £1,000, £1,500 lands as it's supposed to. That when we met, I think you were already on a journey where you were starting to kind of talk openly about like your journey and your story, and you had a kind of a view, like a belief, and the belief was there, and that's what we like attached to what's possible. And that's the thing that I think gets shut out of us at school, when you leave school, when you have a failure, when you get trapped in these systems. And that's what we need to try and do, is we just need to spark that, just a little bit of belief in possibility. Because when you are in these environments, and then when you get pushed into, you know, a fear zone, it shuts down. Like your body wants to protect you, so your creativity shuts down, your belief shuts down. And so actually, if you've got a few people that say, hey, I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself, yeah, just trust the process. That's kind of what I said to you, right? I said, just trust the process. And then that's what starts to kind of, you start to then go, oh, okay, this is something that I hadn't considered. Let's give that a go. And then, you know, you start to kind of open up. So, you know, the thing about this is, this isn't the kind of thing where you go, if you follow this process in a linear way, then X outcome will definitely happen. What this does is it allows you to look into yourself and pull out of yourself what needs to be pulled out. And then it starts to maybe give you some ideas and insights on what may be possible. And then you can create some belief around like that by starting to take a few micro steps. And the problem or the challenge is we want instant gratification for everything as humans, right? So you want to like the result straight away, but often anything hard or anything worth getting takes time. It's hard, right? So actually, if we can just get people just to take little nano steps, right? Even if they don't believe it, if they just take nano steps towards the direction of what they think they might be able to do now, that will build up over time. But actually, if you just go, okay, each day I'll take another little step, I've gone a little bit further forward, I'll do another step the next day, another step. That's how people can start to kind of build up their sort of capability and their kind of resilience and their ability to build a new way forward. I don't have like all the answers, but I'm trying to discover that. And then as I discover that, I want to share it. And that's why I wanted to come in and talk about it here, because I know that there's going to be, a lot of people that are sort of facing it or feeling a bit stuck in their job and want to do something different, but never known how. There's loads of free resources out there. So you don't have to spend, thousands, there's loads of people that charge lots and lots of money, thousands on courses. Like, some of them may be great, but actually there's a lot of free resources out there that people can access, and they should.
It's weird, actually, I guess, and this sort of like brings us towards like wrapping up what we're saying. But in some ways, the bringing in AI in the way that it's being brought in and stuff like that could actually start to expose the big problems with the system, right? And if used correctly, right, and if we empower people properly and rightly, it could really start to empower the people that otherwise would feel like they're not empowered, right? And there's so many ways that I think AI could do that. And, that's kind of in many ways what we're talking about, right? It's sort of, if we, what you're saying is, if we get this right, this moment in time is happening. And if we get it right, it can have a really, really positive impact. I guess the opposing side is if you get it wrong, it'll just give people more power, right? That's what stand up now.
I don't think we know really yet which way that's going to land, but we're already seeing a major divide in AI adoption in class and socioeconomic divides. So actually, if we're not careful, if we don't get into it, the gap is going to get even wider. And so, yeah, like it is a moment, but we need to try and find ways to kind of get people in. And there will be a lot of people that listen to this that may just happen upon like your social media that will have a really negative view on encouraging AI because of like the impact that it has on the environment and all that sort of stuff. But I have to say, like my view is like yes, and right, yes, and it is coming. And if you sort of ignore that it's coming, then actually I think it's going to create a lot more of a wider gap for a lot of people in the world.
Amen, mate. It's been good to do this again.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure, mate. It's a pleasure. And yeah, we'll have to maybe we'll do a semi-regular episode and we'll just go back to old school 115 miles vibes. I'll encourage people to go and listen to 115 miles. It were good times, man.
Yeah. Loads of fun. Like we often said, like, we really look forward to that time coming together. But also we talked about really important stuff during important times. So that's, I think, whatever happens, however frequently or infrequently we do this, I think these important conversations need to happen. So yeah, and I'll be. I know you gave me a hard time because I have been in retirement since we finished, but I will be launching my own podcast soon. I will have you on that when that launches too.
I'll be happy to come on, man. Yeah, just contact the team and we'll send you over a pack of the costs.
Your team of AI. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, for the listeners, I am joking about costs. I'm joking. Mate, I love it. Mate, it's been good to do this. Can't wait to get this out to everybody again. And look, where can people find you, by the way? If they want to find out about Tiller, maybe, and things like that, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably most prolific on LinkedIn. Come and find me on LinkedIn. I am also, Tiller is www.tillr.co. Just, find me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM, and we can have a chat.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll stick all of that in the show notes, of course, my man. Thanks, as ever. Thanks for coming on, mate. And it's been good to do this again.
Yeah, loved it, mate. Thank you.
I did tell you it would be dysfunctional. So thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.